Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most underrated dark fantasy stories out there, The Corpse King and the Ice Sister. A tale of tragedy, loyalty, and a bond that transcends life itself. If you love deep emotional stories mixed with insane world-building and supernatural power systems, you're in for something special. The Demon King's army had nearly destroyed the world, until a mysterious group appeared out of nowhere, led by one human. They crushed everything in their path, their power unmatched. Among them, the strongest was a man called Hawkeye, feared across every battlefield. In the end, their blade reached the Demon King's throat, and the war that once doomed the world came to a sudden stop. Cornered and bleeding, the Demon King trembles in disbelief. Fear fills his eyes as he glares at the human before him. Someone so strong, he can't even understand what he's facing. He steps forward, voice calm but heavy. The world finally learns his name, the Corpse King. The man reveals his true title, the supreme ruler of Helheim, the Corpse King. With that, he ends it all. The battle is over. As the dust settles, one of them calls out his name, Corpse King. The weight of that title fills the silence. After the fight, the group turns away from the battlefield. Their mission is done. Now, they head back to Helheim. After that day, the Corpse King disappeared completely. No one ever saw him again. The scene shifts to a quiet room. The man wakes up, hand on his head, realizing it was just another dream. The Corpse King's real identity is revealed, Hizaki Shio. Once just a regular student, summoned to another world with his entire class. Things didn't go as planned. One after another, Shio's classmates were slaughtered, unable to survive in that brutal world. In the end, everyone was gone. Shio stood alone, the last survivor. Driven by revenge, Shio took the name Corpse King. He gathered powerful allies, forming a secret group to destroy the Demon King. He called his group Helheim. Together, they destroyed the Demon King. But in the end, Shio was forced back to his original world. And now, the story returns to the present, where the Corpse King once again opens his eyes. Back in reality, chaos hits. Shio wakes up tangled in sheets, shouting nonsense in his sleep. The name Corpse King slips out, leaving him completely embarrassed. Lying there, he cringes at the memory of his past self. His classmates never came back, and honestly, he wishes his edgy phase had died with the Demon King too. In his world, only a month had passed, but for him, 5 long years were needed to feel normal again. He remembers everyone, his best friends, the girl he liked, even the ones he argued with. None of them made it out alive. Tears fall as Shio clenches his fists. Forgetting them is impossible. He'll carry those memories forever. But just like that, he snaps out of it, yelling to shake off the heavy thoughts. Whatever happened, life goes on. He gets up, leaving the past behind. It's his graduation day, a new start. Whatever comes next, he's ready to move forward. As he walks out, something strange happens. The air around him distorts. His body starts to fade. Shio opens his eyes, confused. He's back in the place where it all started, the world he swore he'd never return to. Before he can make sense of anything, a familiar voice greets him with a smile, someone he never expected to see again. Standing before him is a girl with long flowing hair and a calm smile. She calls his name, Hizaki Shio, as if she's been waiting for this moment. She greets him by his old title, Corpse King. Shio groans in frustration, telling her to stop calling him that and demanding to know what she wants. Facing the mysterious girl, Shio demands answers. The Demon King is already dead, so why bring him back now? The girl explains that Helheim didn't vanish like Shio thought. His old comrades are still out there, but now they're out of control. She orders him to take responsibility and stop them himself. Before he can argue, she casually announces she's sending him back, completely random location and all. Shio panics, yelling if at least he'll keep his powers this time. With a playful smile, she snaps her fingers. Everything resets. Shio's powerful ice magic and the unique ability that made him the Corpse King are gone in an instant. She explains it casually. Once you leave a world, your powers fade. No exceptions. Shio just stares, speechless. She reminds him that his revenge ended long ago with the Demon King's fall, and tells him not to cling to the past anymore. Shio exhales deeply, accepting it. He admits he created Helheim, and if they've gone rogue, he'll be the one to fix it. When Shio asks about the seal that kept Helheim contained, she casually answers, "It's gone." His eyes widen. Things just got worse. She smiles gently, telling him not to worry. Even after the seal broke, his comrades never forgot their promise. They've been waiting for him all this time. She calls it touching, but Shio's smile fades. Deep down, he knows something about this doesn't feel right. Shio questions everything. If they were loyal, why would Helheim go rogue? But before he gets an answer, she raises her hand, summoning a portal. The Corpse King is about to return to the world that once feared him. With a flash of light, Shio is pulled into the portal. The Corpse King, once thought gone forever, returns to the battlefield once again. With a smirk, she tells him it's time to leave his peaceful life behind, her reward for the hero who once saved the world. Far above the mountains floats Helheim's base, Ariunzel, the fortress once ruled by the Corpse King himself. Inside the fortress, a lone figure whispers to the empty throne, wondering if their king will ever return. Kneeling before the throne, she speaks softly into the silence, asking how long it's been since their king vanished. She admits that after he vanished, everything fell apart. Hakai and the rest of Helheim scattered across the world. Her voice trembles as she whispers his name, Shio, the Corpse King who once united them all. The memory of Shio's words echoes in her mind, calling her his right hand, Nivell the Unshaken, the calm that once held Helheim together. Tears stream down Nivell's face as she whispers his name. Even after all this time, her loyalty and her pain haven't faded. Nivell turns away, whispering that seeing him again doesn't matter. Just knowing Shio is alive, that's enough for her. Hearing footsteps, Nivell freezes and looks around. Only Hakai's squad or the Corpse King himself should know this place. Before she can react, a girl with fox ears bursts through the door and hugs her tightly, shouting her name, Nivell. Garm trembles, ears twitching as she sniffs the air. Then, her eyes widen. She can smell him. The Corpse King. Her voice echoes across the forest, shouting the words that shake the world. The king has returned. Shio looks down at his hand, feeling the strange sensation of power flickering beneath his skin. The return has begun. Shio realizes the transfer succeeded. Without hesitation, he summons his status window to confirm his current state. As the window lights up, Shio sees his stats. Ice Magic, level 1. His old title, Corpse King, still tied to his name. The Blessing of the Dead remains, a power built from the fallen. Shio realizes it, the Blessing of the Dead. The cursed ability that started everything. He remembers what it truly meant, a power that grows stronger with every ally lost. The more friends who die, the more strength he gains. The first time he absorbed a fallen friend's power, Shio almost broke. The weight of their death and strength tore at his mind. Everyone he cared about died. Every single one of them. And with the power he gained from their deaths, Shio was finally able to kill the Demon King. Shio looks ahead with determination. He's done losing people. This time, he'll fight without relying on that cursed power. Energy bursts from his chest as Shio prepares himself. Before anything else, he knows he needs to get his magic under control. Shio summons his Ice Blade, the weapon that once carved his legend. With it back in his grasp, he sets out to find the others. Elsewhere, a swordswoman looks around confused. The forest she patrolled yesterday is now completely transformed. Something unnatural has awakened. Back in the city, soldiers gather in shock. Reports say the entire Griffle forest has frozen solid, something only a monster of immense power could have done. One of the knights steps forward, insisting the princess stay behind while they send troops to investigate the frozen forest. But the princess refuses to stand down. As a descendant of the royal bloodline that once defeated the Demon King, she declares it's her duty to face whatever caused this. As she steps into the frozen wasteland, the princess shivers. The air is freezing, and every creature is gone. Only one thing could have done this. Ice magic. The princess clenches her teeth, convinced it could only be the work of a high-ranking demon. Hearing a faint groan nearby, the princess tightens her grip on her sword and moves cautiously toward the sound. The princess spots movement in the bushes. Her instincts kick in. Could it be a demon? An animal? Then she sees him. Not a monster, but a man. The princess rushes forward as the man suddenly collapses. Shocked, she kneels beside him, trying to help before even realizing who he is. Panicked, The princess tries to keep the man conscious, thinking he might have been attacked by demons. He collapses in her arms, weak and trembling, mumbling that he's starving and about to die. He devours the food like a starving beast, tears of joy streaming down his face. It's the best thing he's ever tasted. The girl offers him more food, telling him to eat all he wants, while he keeps devouring everything in sight without hesitation. After eating, Shio thanks her, saying he thought he was done for. She tells him no one could have predicted the forest turning into ice. It's not his fault. As he looks closer, Shio notices the emblem on her armor. Something familiar clicks in his memory, and his expression subtly changes. With a confident smile, the girl realizes she hasn't introduced herself yet. She asks him not to be too shocked before revealing her identity. With full pride, she throws her arms wide and declares her name. Asha El Griffel, the fifth princess of the Holy Griffel Kingdom. Shio freezes for a second, surprised by what he just heard. The girl, clearly proud of herself, smiles and asks if her reveal caught him off guard. Shio looks confused, not even sure a fifth princess existed. Asha quickly snaps, reminding him she's right there, a descendant of the royal bloodline that defeated the demon king long ago. Shio raises his hand, trying to process everything. He tells her to slow down for a second. Shio looks stunned as the realization hits. The war she's talking about happened nearly 2 centuries ago. None of it makes sense. Asha notices how off he's been acting and starts wondering if he's lost his memory. Then, realizing she never asked, she questions him. What's his name? Just as Shio starts to speak, a sharp voice cuts through the air. Someone new appears, sword drawn and aimed right at him, ordering him not to move. Shio and the princess are surrounded by mercenaries, pretending to share a meal while tension fills the air. One of the mercenaries grabs Shio and presses a blade to his neck, warning the princess to stay still, or he dies. The princess is grabbed from behind by one of the mercenaries. She struggles, demanding to know if they're the ones who froze the entire forest. As the man steps forward, he calls out the princess's name, Asha El Griffel. He smirks, admitting the frozen forest was just bait to lure her in. From the shadows, a man with a calm smile steps forward, introducing himself as Lucas, the strategist of the secret society known as Helheim. His tone is polite, but the air around him feels dangerous. Shio steps in front of Asha, his tone cold as he repeats the name, Helheim. With a faint smirk, Shio realizes the situation just got complicated. Asha is pinned to the ground, her name spoken by one of the attackers with a twisted grin. Lucas smirks, saying he knew the royal family would show up once the forest anomaly began. Lucas mocks Asha, calling her reckless for falling into their trap, then glances at Shio, dismissing him as useless baggage. Lucas drags Asha away, mocking her as he promises she'll be well taken care of. Lucas smirks as he hints at using Asha for his own amusement, his tone dripping with arrogance. Asha yells in rage, but before she can act, Lucas blasts Shio with a powerful strike, sending him flying. Shio is surrounded, taking blow after blow without even trying to defend himself as the mercenaries kick him down mercilessly. As Asha yells for them to stop, Lucas smirks, taunting her. He praises her sense of justice and skill in combat, but mocks that the best way to control someone like her is through others' suffering, while Shio keeps being beaten in front of her. Even while beaten and barely standing, Shio lifts his head and demands to know who they are, his tone cold and fearless. Shio glares at him, confused but calm, saying he has no idea who this man is. The name Lucas doesn't ring a bell at all. Lucas snaps, slashing at Shio in rage, furious that he dares not to know the name Helheim. Lucas raises his hand proudly, declaring himself one of Helheim's top executives, showing the frozen forest as proof of his power. Lucas laughs, his voice echoing through the frozen air. He boasts, calling himself the strategist of Helheim, and flaunts his power for everyone to see. Asha charges forward, shouting for Lucas to stop, but he strikes her without hesitation, knocking her to the ground with sheer force. Lucas grabs Asha by the hair and lifts her off the ground, calling her naive for opposing Helheim, a ruthless organization that manipulates the world from the shadows. Lucas grins, ready to teach Asha a lesson in fear, but before he can finish, the man he underestimated cuts him off with a calm, dismissive tone. Shio breaks free from the mercenaries holding him down. As he walks toward Lucas, his calm voice cuts through the chaos. He tells him there's no one like him in Helheim, leaving everyone frozen in confusion. The mercenaries panic. None of them even saw when Shio moved. 1 second he was still, the next he was gone. Shio yells in frustration, mocking Lucas for bragging about a secret organization in public, calling it lame. Still standing calmly, Shio keeps mocking them, saying their merciless and cruel act sounds pathetic. The mercenaries stare at him, completely lost. Shio keeps talking, saying that if everyone knows about their group, then it's not really a secret society at all, just a joke. Shio lets out a sigh, relieved that at least his subordinates didn't cause any unnecessary trouble. Shio steps forward, calling out Lucas for already breaking one of Helheim's supposed rules, revealing his own name. The mercenaries froze in shock as a sudden surge of power hit them, ice crawling rapidly across their bodies before they could even react. Lucas's body begins to freeze, his movements slowing as Shio's voice cuts through the cold, calm but sharp. Shio reminds him that even he must know the rule he just broke. Shio points at him calmly, revealing that Lucas wasn't the one who froze the forest. His power wasn't nearly strong enough for that. Shio's calm tone turns chilling as he admits he's already taken over 1,000 lives since arriving in this world. The enemy freezes, realizing the monster before him isn't human. Shio makes a simple hand gesture, his voice cold. He says the man's ignorance proves he isn't from Helheim, and that alone gives him permission to kill. With a flick of his hand, Shio freezes everything around him. The mercenaries shatter like glass as he says coldly that trash like them has no right to even speak Helheim's name. Right after wiping them out, Shio suddenly stops and mutters to himself. Something seems to have caught his attention. Shio pulls out his old notebook and freezes. Inside are his old middle school fantasies, names, powers, and symbols identical to the so-called Helheim. He realizes this world somehow brought his childish creations to life. Shio grabs his head in disbelief, realizing the villains are literally using the same cringy names he made up as a kid. The embarrassment hits him harder than any battle could. Asha points her sword at Shio, thinking he's the one who froze the entire forest. As Asha aims her sword, Shio awkwardly scratches his head, realizing he might have gone too far. While she yells for him to stop, he casually apologizes, like freezing a forest was just a small mistake. Asha keeps her sword steady, demanding answers from Shio. She wants to know why he destroyed the forest and what his real goal is. Shio thinks for a moment, scratching his chin before giving a half-serious answer, saying he probably just wanted to kill some demons. Shio explains his reason like it's the most obvious thing in the world. Demons still exist, even after the Demon King's death. To him, wiping them out is just cleaning up what's left behind. Surely, the princess wouldn't oppose that. Shio teases Asha, telling her there's no need to look so scared. Annoyed, she snaps back, denying it with fire in her eyes. With a calm smile, he finally introduces himself. Shio, just an ordinary human. Asha, still shaken, can barely say his name back. Asha takes a deep breath, lowering her sword. With the tension fading, she says she needs to move on. Shio looks ahead with determination, saying there's something he still needs to take care of. As he walks away, Shio waves casually, saying he'll repay the favor if he remembers. Asha watches him leave, quietly calling his name as the cold wind passes through the silent forest. Deep within the shadows, a cloaked skeleton murmurs a single name, Corpse King. The Corpse King, a sworn enemy of the Griffle royal family, and the one who fought the hero who defeated the Demon King countless times. And above all, his existence was never meant to return. Surrounded by corpses, the cloaked figure stood in silence. The one known as the Great Sinner, responsible for slaughtering all 32 of the hero's companions. He clenched his trembling hand, realizing that in his current state, he stood no chance. As Shio turned his back to leave, she stared at him, her mind racing. If that man truly was the Corpse King, then everything they knew was about to change. Determined, she tightened her grip on the sword and declared that she'd be the one to take Shio down for the honor of the royal family. Meanwhile, inside a grand building, a group of cloaked figures walked through the hall, surprised by the report that Griffle's sea of trees had completely frozen. The group discussed the strange event. It wasn't natural or magical. One suggested it could only be the work of the Demon King, or another high-ranking demon. The leader dismissed the idea and ordered them to inform the emperor immediately. The hooded man bowed his head slightly, acknowledging the command with a calm, "Understood." As the door opened, the cloaked figures knelt, their voices trembling with reverence. The long-awaited figure had arrived, the corpse king, Helsama. The woman gathered her power, flames erupting beneath her feet as she launched herself into the air, shouting the corpse king's name with a crazed devotion. With a wild grin, the demon woman, Nidhogg, shot upward at full speed, her wings tearing through the air as dark energy swirled around her. Shio examined his spell, realizing the so-called blessing of death hadn't changed much from what he remembered. Surrounded by corpses, Shio muttered to himself. The more he killed, the stronger he became, until slaughtering demons felt as natural as breathing. Shio's eyes darkened as his thoughts spiraled. The urge to kill had completely consumed him. Shio shook his head, forcing away the violent thoughts. There was no point in remembering any of it. He decided to move on. Sitting by the cave entrance, Shio called out calmly. He could sense the two hidden nearby and told them to stop hiding. Shio sighed, realizing what he'd have to do to make them come out. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was the one embarrassed by his own idea. Letting out a tired sigh, Shio gave in. With a faint smirk, he agreed to do it himself. Watching him carefully, she hesitated before asking if he was the corpse king. Her voice trembled with both fear and disbelief. Shio stood calmly in front of the two, confirming with a simple nod that he was indeed their king. The two women stared in disbelief, struggling to process what they'd just heard. Shio confirmed with a small smile, admitting that he didn't really like being called by that title. The two girls froze, completely stunned by his casual attitude. Shio looked at the two women who had been waiting for him all this time. Realizing their patience, he stepped forward with a calm smile, ready to finally face what was coming next. Shio apologized for the wait, determined to meet their expectations. The two girls looked at him in shock, barely able to process his words. Shio raised his voice with authority, commanding the two to swear their loyalty and vows before him. The two knelt, declaring their vows before him, Garm and Nilf, loyal followers of their king. Shio smiled faintly, relieved to see they were both safe. With a calm smile, Shio raised his hand and declared the words that shook the air. The corpse king had returned. Tears filled Nilf's eyes as she looked at Shio. Her king, the one she thought she'd lost forever, had truly returned. Overwhelmed with emotion, Garm and Nilf ran to Shio, welcoming their king back after so long. Shio placed his hands on their shoulders, smiling softly as he welcomed his loyal followers back. Nilf, still teary-eyed, stepped forward and called out to Shio with a shaky smile. Shio looked down, startled, gripping his cloak as he realized what Nilf had just given him. Shio unfolded the cloak, realizing it was the same one worn by the members of Helheim, a symbol of his return and of who he once was. Shio looked at the cloak, realizing it wasn't exactly as he remembered. Nilf had clearly made some personal adjustments. Shio put on the cloak, adjusting it over his shoulders. Despite everything, he couldn't deny it. It still looked pretty cool. Nilf and Garm smiled, excitement in their eyes as they prepared to follow their king's lead. Shio raised his hand, his cloak flowing with power. Declaring his resolve, he called his followers to move. Nilf and Garm answered instantly, shouting their loyalty as they charged behind their king. After their bold declaration, Shio suddenly crouched down, exhausted. Nilf looked at him, worried, while Garm tilted her head, confused. He waved it off, trying to act fine, though clearly, his pride had just taken a small hit. Nilf looked puzzled, and Garm scratched her head as Shio awkwardly blamed his old Chinibu days for that dramatic line. Shio smiled softly, watching his companions by his side. For the first time in a long while, he truly felt at peace, glad he decided to return. Tears welled up in Nilf and Garm's eyes as they smiled, finally hearing the words they'd waited so long for. Their king was truly back. Hidden inside the cave, the two cloaked figures confessed. They were the ones who froze the Griffle Sea of trees, the same path they had once walked. Nilf analyzed the surroundings carefully, noting how the land had shifted over the years. The traces of old magic and demons were still strong, proof of the chaos that once ruled this place. Nilf studied the map, realizing even the unexplored zones had been charted recently. It only gave a rough overview, nothing truly useful. Shio studied the map with a small grin, pointing to the nearby plain. If they wanted real information, there was only one place to go, the explorer's town of Got. Nilf agreed without hesitation, and Garm's eyes sparkled with excitement. It had been ages since their last visit to Got, the explorer's town. Shio thought for a moment. Wherever people gather, rumors and information follow. Maybe in Got, he could even find out more about the ones falsely using Helheim's name. Garm's tail wagged as she looked up at Shio, her face glowing with admiration, calling him incredible without a hint of hesitation. Garm laughed, teasing Shio and saying he acted way too normal for someone like the Corpse King. Nilf stepped in confidently, saying their king could do anything, even act innocent if he wanted. Shio smirked slightly, muttering to himself about being called a normal guy. Shio agreed awkwardly, while Nilf mentioned that acting natural would help them gather the information they needed. Shio admitted he'd keep his disguise for now and told them he wasn't as strong as before. Still, he'd be relying on both Nilf and Garm to back him up on this mission. Hearing their king trust them for the first time, both Nilf and Garm were fired up. They swore to protect him with everything they had, even if it cost their lives. Shio looked a bit nervous, wondering if maybe he was relying too much on them this time. Watching Nilf and Garm's loyalty, Shio realized he needed to grow stronger, fast, so he wouldn't fall behind them. Shio suddenly stopped, his expression tense. Nilf called out to him, and both girls turned their attention toward the sound that had caught his focus. A massive armored creature burst out from the wall, chains clattering as it towered over Shio and the others. Shio and Nilf quickly assessed the situation. A mid-level demon had appeared, proof that the area they were in was far more dangerous than expected. Garm jumped forward with excitement, raising her hand high, eager to prove herself in front of her king. Shio smiled and told Garm he was counting on her, making the beast girl cheer with pure excitement. With a single move, Garm slammed the giant armored demon into the ground, destroying it completely while making a smug face. Garm faced the massive armored demon head-on. It was powerful, but nothing special, just brute force and no real skill behind it. Shio smirked, saying that kind of fight was exactly Garm's thing. Garm unleashed her power, her body glowing with raw energy as she activated her indestructible beast form. Garm charged straight at the armored monster and bit down hard, crushing its metal plating with brute force. Watching Garm tear through the monster, Shio couldn't help but be impressed, and even his ally admitted it was incredible. Garm's special ability, indestructible beast body. Her defense and endurance are unmatched. Her power makes her nearly invincible. She can ignore any damage unless it's fatal. To bring her down, it'd have to be in one single, lethal blow. As a beast folk, Garm was naturally tough, but even among her kind, her power stood out. She was on another level entirely. Covered in dirt but smiling proudly, Garm looked back at them, waiting for praise after her brutal fight. Shio smiled, relieved and proud, telling Garm he knew she wouldn't let him down. Garm, still covered in blood, just grinned nervously, trying to hide her embarrassment. Nilf wiped the blood off Garm's face, sighing in exhaustion. She muttered that no one was harder to deal with than that girl, even after a victory. Shio smiled slightly, thinking how lucky he was to have Garm fighting beside him. The group finally arrived at Got, the lively town of explorers where adventurers shouted and prepared for their next journey. As they walked through the streets, Nilf noticed the explorers rushing around, tense and shouting. Something big was clearly happening. As Shio looked around the busy streets of Got, memories from his past resurfaced. This was the first town he ever visited after being summoned to this world. Garm noticed Shio's sudden silence and asked if something was wrong, but he quickly brushed it off and told them to start gathering information immediately. While walking through the alley, Shio thought about the fake group using Helheim's name. He couldn't ignore the chance that someone from his old ranks might be behind it. Shio dismissed the thought. If his high-ranking members were truly involved, the destruction would have been far worse. Shio entered the room, shaking off his doubts. He told himself to stop overthinking and focus on the mission. Inside the guild, Shio observed quietly. To uncover the truth about the fake Helheim, he needed to learn their purpose, their movements, and their trail. Shio scanned the room, eyes sharp. The guild was filled with drunk adventurers, most too loud or tired to notice him. Still, he was searching anyone who might know something about the fake Helheim. Nearby, a drunk explorer bragged loudly while a woman tried to calm him down. Shio quickly noted their low-level gear. They were just rookies, nothing useful to him. Shio focused his gaze, spotting a few who looked easy to approach. If he played it right, he could make them talk. He made up his mind. Time to buy a few drinks and loosen some tongues. One of the explorers stumbled, barely keeping his balance while the woman next to him sighed, clearly fed up. Shio watched them from a distance. Perfect timing to step in. Shio walked up calmly and leaned toward the table, catching the girl's attention. He greeted her casually, asking if she was alone, setting the stage to start his conversation. She shot back without even looking at him, saying she was drinking with a friend. Shio didn't wait for permission and sat right down, pretending to blend in like it was nothing. The girl panicked, realizing she'd lost control of the situation. With a sly smile, Shio leaned forward and told her he only wanted to ask a few things. His calm tone making it sound both friendly and unsettling. At the school gate, a girl walked alone through the crowd, wondering if he'd show up today. He hadn't woken up at his usual time that morning. As Hizaki walked through the gate, one of her classmates greeted her cheerfully, completely unaware of the serious look on her face. Hizaki replied briefly, keeping her calm expression as she walked past him. Her classmate tried to invite her out after school, but Hizaki cut him off immediately, saying she already had plans with her brother. He awkwardly laughed it off, pretending he wasn't crushed inside. Next time, then. Yes, sure, next time. Her name was Hizaki Hyoka. Calm, composed, and honest with herself. She didn't hide it. There was someone she truly liked. Her brother, Hizaki Shu. The guy who somehow makes every girl's standards impossible from day one. Shu was the perfect older brother, good-looking, calm, and the kind of guy everyone liked. To Hyoka, he wasn't just family. He was the person she admired most. Shu wasn't just her brother. He was the golden boy everyone compared themselves to. Perfect looks, perfect manners, and somehow, still too perfect to hate. Hyoka never cared about school crushes or teenage romance. To her, no one her age could ever compare to Shu. Out of nowhere, the classroom vanished, replaced by a strange new world. While everyone panicked, Hyoka stayed silent. Her expression said it all. What the hell just happened? The students stood frozen as everything around them turned pure white. No walls, no floor, just endless light. Confusion spread fast, but Hyoka stayed alert, trying to make sense of it. The class panicked, completely lost in the blinding void, no clue what to do next. Out of nowhere, a mysterious girl appeared, calm and playful, as if she already knew what was happening. With a casual smile, the strange girl announced that everyone would be sent to another world, acting like it was no big deal at all. Hyoka froze for a moment, her mind struggling to process what she just heard. Another world? The whole class erupted in confusion, everyone shouting at once, completely losing their minds after hearing the words, another world. The class broke into chaos, half of them confused, the other half arguing about what an ice guy even was. One of the girls started yelling at the so-called god, demanding to be sent back, but the woman just stood there snacking like it was no big deal. The so-called goddess waved her hand like it was nothing, saying they'd be fine and should just enjoy life in another world. Before the goddess could finish, Hyoka raised her hand sharply, trying to stop her. While everyone panicked or shouted in confusion, Hyoka stayed still. Calmly, she looked down and said she wasn't going anywhere. The goddess looked down, smirking slightly. She said it wasn't her fault. They were summoned by someone else. If Hyoka had complaints, she could tell them to the locals who did it. Without waiting for a reply, the goddess threw her arms up and yelled that it was time for the fun part. The students froze, unsure if she was serious or just insane. The goddess smiled and explained the rules like a game. Anyone who agreed to go to another world would receive a special ability, a skill to survive out there. She told them their powers had one condition: help the people who summoned them. After that, they could do whatever they wanted. The class looked uneasy, realizing this wasn't some fantasy game. The goddess teased them, saying there'd be no more school or work in that new world. They could chase riches, fame, or even be with whoever they wanted. The goddess raised her hand, revealing a glowing sphere. She said they'd be transported in the order they touched it. Smiling confidently, the goddess opened her arms and told them to step forward whenever they were ready. A few students rushed forward, shouting they were going first. Excitement and greed took over as they hurried to touch the sphere. The students pushed and yelled, fighting to be the first to touch the sphere. Everyone wanted the best power, desperate to claim their new life. One of Hyuka's classmates reached out to her, nervously suggesting they go too. His voice shook, unsure if staying behind was even an option. Hyuka looked at him calmly and told him to go ahead without her. Hyuka's tone stayed cold. She said she wanted to think alone and told him to go without her. The boy hesitated, then left as the others vanished one by one. The goddess glanced back at Hyuka, reminding her that the portal wouldn't stay open for long. Hyuka asked what would happen if she refused to go. The goddess shrugged and said she'd just stay trapped in that endless white space forever. Hyuka quietly asked to be sent back home, but the goddess smirked and said that wasn't possible. Hyuka lowered her head, her voice turning cold. She asked what would happen if she killed the goddess instead. The goddess acted shocked, pretending to be scared, then laughed it off, saying she couldn't die anyway, so it wouldn't matter. After a brief silence, the goddess tilted her head and casually asked for Hyuka's name. Without hesitation, Hyuka finally answered, stating her full name with a steady voice. The goddess's eyes widened as if she'd just figured something out. Her grin stretched unnaturally as she laughed, saying it all made sense now. The goddess suddenly mentioned Hyuka's brother, reminding her he'd vanished about a month ago. With a sly grin, the goddess said the answer to that mystery waited in the other world. Hyuka stared at the goddess in silence, wondering if she knew her brother's secret, and if following him to that world was the only way to find out. Hyuka finally spoke, her voice steady. She asked if someone could return home after completing their goal in that world. The goddess smiled faintly and said that's exactly what happened with Hyuka's brother. Hyuka realized it wasn't a safe trip, just a one-way path with no promise of coming back, just like her brothers. Without hesitation, Hyuka reached for the sphere. Light burst around her as the transfer began, her decision made. As Hyuka vanished into the light, the goddess smiled sweetly, wondering how many of them would survive this time. She sat across from the girl he'd met earlier at the tavern. Leaning back, he asked if she knew anything about the commotion happening in town. Shu explained that an intermediate demon had appeared in the third-level unexplored zone known as the Battlefield Cage. She mentioned there'd been disappearances in that area and asked if she was all right. The girl stammered, saying she'd seen a demon covered in armor, an intermediate one, most likely. She explained that people believed the demon was behind the disappearances and suggested she check the missing persons board for details. She nodded quietly, taking in the information without showing much reaction. As Shu was about to leave, he turned to the girl again, saying he had one more question. She froze, startled and blushing. Shu asked if she'd ever heard of Helheim, wondering what kind of group it was and what they were doing in the Empire. The girl explained that Helheim was linked to the demon tribe's goals. They'd been kidnapping, robbing, and killing across the Empire, and would soon be hunted everywhere. She let out a short laugh, rubbing his head as he muttered that it was only a matter of time. She thanked the girl for all the information, saying she'd been a big help. His tone was calm, but genuine. The girl blushed, stammering that if he was satisfied with that answer, then she was glad to help. A cheerful man in armor walked up, calling out to the girl with a grin. The girl turned around, worried, asking if Ando was okay as he stumbled toward the table, apologizing. The man teased her, noticing her red face. Embarrassed, she tried to make up an excuse but couldn't find the words. When she turned back, Shu was already gone. The girl blinked in surprise, wondering when he had slipped away. Nilf entered a dimly lit bar, her cloak hiding most of her face. She approached the counter and demanded information in a cold tone. The bartender looked at Nilf lazily and asked how much she'd pay, saying he might talk if she spent the night. Before he could finish, Nilf moved. The man froze, startled, as her presence alone silenced the room. Nilf glared at him, her voice low and sharp. She repeated that all she wanted was information. Nilf's voice turned cold as she warned him. Information should only be traded for money or knowledge. Those who didn't understand that didn't deserve to live. The man behind the counter froze, realizing Nilf had seen straight through his act. She already knew he was the real one in charge. Nilf leaned forward, her eyes sharp. She demanded the latest information about Helheim. Nothing old, nothing outdated. The man admitted there wasn't much solid info about Helheim. Just rumors and scattered gossip. He paused, then mentioned there was one rumor that might be connected to the recent chaos spreading through the land. The man froze mid-sentence. He was sure he'd just grabbed his cup, yet somehow, it was already across the table. The man's voice trembled as he accused her of moving it. Nilf stayed silent, her expression unreadable beneath the hood. The man's eyes widened as he realized who she was. Nilf, the information dealer rumored to control time itself. The man chuckled nervously, saying no payment was needed. Just proving she existed was news valuable enough. Leaving the bar, Nilf admitted to herself she hadn't gathered much useful information. In another part of town, Garm walked through the crowd humming to himself, his fox ears twitching as he scanned the busy streets. Garm closed her eyes and pressed her hands to her ears, focusing to sharpen her hearing through the surrounding noise. As Garm focused her hearing, she picked up whispers from nearby adventurers talking about disappearances and a powerful demon in the battlefield cage. One name kept coming up, Nilf. Garm sighed, saying with so little intel, she should have brought the Corpse King, or even Nilf. Garm pouted, realizing she wouldn't get any praise for the effort she'd put in. A familiar voice called out to her, firm and commanding. Garm froze for a second before realizing it was her king. Garm's eyes lit up with excitement. Her king had noticed she'd used her power. As Garm rode off through the streets, she smiled proudly. To her, it was only natural. Her king knew everything. News spread across town. People were vanishing in the unexplored Level 3 zone, where an intermediate demon was rumored to appear. Gathered around the map, Shio, Nilf, and Garm compared what each had discovered. Shio calmly stated that from all their findings, only 2 solid conclusions could be made. From the reports, they learned that 7 people had vanished, the first disappearance happening exactly a month ago. Looking at the data, Shio confirmed that the demon they were talking about was the same one Garm and her squad had already defeated. Analyzing the situation, Nilf concluded that the demon couldn't survive there on its own. For it to remain active, someone had to be feeding it mana, proof that humans were involved. After putting the pieces together, Shio realized someone was sustaining the demon. Determined, he decided they needed to return to the battlefield cage to uncover the truth. Deep underground, a new group descended into the battlefield cage, an ancient ruin buried beneath the remains of a long-forgotten war, a place where danger lurked in every shadow. The group stopped in shock. The massive armored demon they came to investigate was already dead. They examined the crushed armor. Whoever killed that demon wasn't some random adventurer. The blow was clean, precise, and terrifyingly strong. Still confused about what happened, the group decided to return to town to report their findings. Before they could leave, one of the men stopped them. His tone darkened. 2 of his comrades had already been killed in this place. He clenched his fists and asked for their help. He wanted to recover the explorer cards of his fallen comrades. The others nodded, agreeing without hesitation. The man took the lead, guiding the others deeper into the cave where his teammates had fallen. After following the path deeper, the group hit a dead end. The tunnel stopped abruptly, silent and empty, leaving them confused about where their search should go next. As they questioned the path, the ground suddenly gave way beneath them. The 2 explorers fell through the crumbling floor, completely caught off guard. The 2 crash into the ground hard. One groans in pain while the other checks if he's still conscious, trying to shake off the shock of the fall. Their leader peers down through the hole, shouting to make sure his teammates survive the fall. One of them starts to help the other up, but his friend suddenly stops him, noticing something strange ahead. They freeze as they find 3 lifeless bodies lying on the ground, covered in blood. They quickly notice something's off. There were supposed to be only 2 bodies, not 3. One of them kneels down and finds something in the blood, an explorer card. They stare in shock. The card belongs to the man who was just with them. Realizing the truth too late, one of them turns toward the man, but his form has already begun to twist into something inhuman. Before they can react, the man's face splits in a twisted grin. His body starts to rot and warp, half human, half monster. With a crazed smile, he mutters his last words. His mission is complete. The 2 explorers freeze as the walls around them erupt with movement. Dozens of giant insects crawl out from the darkness, surrounding them. A sinister voice echoes through the cavern, mocking their fear and welcoming them to its nest. From the shadows, a towering figure emerges, its armor pulsing with dark energy. The creature introduces itself as Os, the 57th high-ranking demon, the Supreme Commander. Its presence alone crushes the air around the explorers. Before they can react, a swarm of monstrous ants engulfs them. The creatures drag the explorers down, their screams fading as the demon laughs, welcoming them to their doom. The demon raises his arms, his laughter echoing through the cavern as the swarm descends. His words drip with madness. He calls for a toast, not with wine, but with their blood. Standing tall and calm, Os reveals his true form, a greater demon, one whose intelligence rivals or even surpasses that of humans. Demons like him serve directly under the Demon King, twisted beings who devour humans and rank themselves by power and cruelty. Their hierarchy mirrors that of nobles, from count and marquis to duke, sovereign, and finally, the king who rules them all. Os wasn't just a high-ranking demon. He was a commander, a being outside the usual hierarchy, capable of manipulating other demons and twisting their forms at will. With one command, the entire cave began to tremble. Laughing maniacally, Os revealed his scheme. He had been turning explorers into demons, little by little, all to reach this moment of power. Even after losing his original experiment, Os didn't care. Surrounded by a swarm of mid-rank demons, he grinned. He still had more than enough power to crush anyone who stood against him. Os roared with excitement. The Demon King's awakening was close, and his long-awaited plan was almost complete. Os realized his mistake too late. As his armor shattered, a monstrous new demon emerged from within, stronger, faster, and filled with raw rage. At that moment, Mars, Nilf, and Garm appeared before Os. The ground cracked beneath their feet as Mars raised his hand, ready to end this battle before it began. Mars looked at Os with a cold stare, confirming what he already suspected. The creature before him was a high-ranking demon. Hyoka stood among the crowd, her eyes locked on the newcomer. She could tell immediately the final hero had arrived. The man introduced himself as Dart El Griffel, the king of the Holy Kingdom of Griffel. The king dropped to his knees, pleading with the group of students for their help. The king begged them to save his kingdom, to use their power to defeat the Corpse King, Helheim, the source of all evil in their world. The king introduced his daughter, Asha, the summoner chosen by the Orb of Transmigration. Asha stepped forward with calm confidence. From that moment, she was assigned to guide the heroes on their mission across this new world. Hyoka glared at them, frustrated that everything was being decided without their input. Asha introduced herself as the fifth princess of the kingdom, asking the summoned heroes to lend their strength to protect her land. Before anything else, the heroes were told their special abilities would be evaluated to determine their potential. As they walked through the hall, the students joked nervously about what special abilities could mean, some hoping for cheap powers, others trying to act casual about it. Amid the chatter, Hyoka stayed quiet. Her only thought was wanting to go back home. The soldiers ordered them to step forward one by one for the test, but the students froze when they realized it meant actually fighting. Before anyone could react, Hyoka suddenly stepped forward, leaving everyone stunned. Asha's eyes widened the moment she saw it. Hyoka was controlling ice magic with ease. Asha froze in disbelief. Ice magic was supposed to be extinct. The only one known to use it was the Corpse King himself. Hyoka stayed calm, barely reacting to Asha's shock. Her expression didn't change, almost like the news meant nothing to her. Hyoka's status shocked everyone. She wasn't just any mage. Her title linked her directly to the Corpse King himself. Hyoka froze, whispering a name that shouldn't have existed in this world. Shio, the Corpse King. When their eyes met, the truth hit everyone. Hyoka and Shio weren't strangers. She softly called him Big Brother, leaving the others stunned. As they entered the area, everything was covered in ice, the entire forest completely frozen. They followed the trail through the frozen woods. Nivel could smell the king's presence up ahead. Nilf led the way through the frozen forest, following the faint scent that pointed straight to the king. Nilf remembered. The first time she met the Corpse King was on a day just like this, buried in snow and silence. Nilf revealed her truth. She was born between two worlds, child of an angel mother and a demon father. Nilf confessed that her father was executed, and her mother abandoned her soon after, leaving her completely alone in the snow. Cold and starving, Nilf wandered through the snow, thinking she might find something to eat in the nearby town. Nilf was so desperate that she no longer cared what happened to her. She just wanted a place to survive. Nilf stopped herself, realizing that if she went any further, there'd be no turning back. Thinking of her mother, Nilf's heart went cold. Apologies meant nothing now. Nilf ran through the freezing woods, her heart aching. She never wanted forgiveness, just her mother's warmth beside her. Collapsed in the snow, Nilf cried out for help. Anyone, someone, just to not be alone anymore. Nilf woke up by the fire, startled. In front of her stood a cloaked figure, his eyes calm but piercing as he asked if she was awake. Nilf kept her distance, confused and cautious. Sitting across the fire, she demanded to know why he saved her and what he wanted. The hooded man spoke calmly, saying he found her tracks while training in the mountains. He told Nilf she was lucky. If he'd arrived any later, the snow would have buried her completely. Nilf snapped, demanding to know his true intentions. She didn't care how he found her. She just wanted to know what he planned to do with her. He simply said he couldn't leave a dying kid to freeze. Nothing more, nothing less. He told Nilf to move closer to the fire if she was cold, but she turned away, saying her warmth wasn't his problem. Nilf kept repeating to herself that she should kill him before it's too late, but something about him felt different. Her body froze. Words got stuck in her throat as he calmly stepped closer. Nilf's body trembled. Fear flooded her chest as the stranger knelt in front of her without saying a word. When he reached out to touch her, Nilf panicked and shouted without thinking, claiming she could see the future just to keep him away. Nilf shouted in panic, claiming he would die in 5 seconds. Her voice trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on him, trying to hide her fear behind bravado. Her words carried a cursed power, one feared even by the Demon King. A single lie, spoken with intent, could twist reality itself. Nilf's words sealed his fate. Her cursed power declared that he would die right there. But instead of fear, the man just stared at her, confused. Instead of panicking, the man calmly asked what she meant. Nilf froze for a moment. No one had ever reacted that way to her curse before. Nilf panicked. Her curse wasn't working on him. He touched her shoulder, calm and unaffected, as if her deadly power meant nothing. Nilf broke down, convinced she was about to die. But instead of attacking, the man just looked at her with quiet regret, whispering an apology she didn't understand. Tears fell as Nilf muttered an apology she didn't even understand herself, words she thought she'd never say again. Nilf remembered countless times she had begged for forgiveness, her voice shaking as she knelt before those who only saw her as a curse. No matter how much she apologized, nothing ever changed. The pain, the loneliness, they always stayed. Shio covered Nilf with his cloak, healing her wounds and keeping her warm without saying much. Shio stood up and said his power wasn't earned. It was a gift, something he never asked for. With a calm look, Shio told Nilf that if she felt thankful, she should thank the one who gave him his strength, not him. Shio noticed her tears and quietly asked why she was crying, confused by her sudden emotion. Shio gave a faint smile, saying he didn't really know. Maybe he was just avoiding thinking about it. Shio looked at her with concern, asking why she had been out there alone, hurt, bleeding, and crying in the middle of the snow. She turned away coldly, saying their loneliness wasn't the same, and that she had no intention of getting attached. After a brief silence, he introduced himself with a calm tone. His name was Shio. Bound by her fears, she convinced herself that trusting him would only lead to betrayal, just like before. Despite her doubts, for some reason she felt safe around him. With a quiet voice, she admitted she didn't even have a name, abandoned since birth. After hearing her story, Shio smiled faintly and offered to give her a name. She didn't seem to care much and simply told him to do as he wished. Shio paused for a moment, thinking carefully before speaking. He wanted the name to truly mean something. After a brief silence, Shio looked up at the snowy sky and said the name he'd chosen, Nivel. Lying quietly, Shio's name echoed in her mind. She wondered if, since that day, the loneliness in his eyes had ever truly disappeared. Nivel stood still, her expression tense. Something about the silence around her stirred a mix of unease and frustration. It had been almost 200 years since the day Shio took her in, 2 centuries that felt like a dream frozen in time. Even after all those years, Nivel's feelings for Shio hadn't faded. They only grew deeper, stronger, and harder to control. After centuries apart, Nivel smiled softly, her voice trembling as she greeted him. Shio had finally returned. For this moment only, she let her heart speak, words she could never bring herself to say again. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We post new manga stories every week. And if you want to experience this masterpiece in full, don't just watch. Go support the official release and buy the manga. Trust me, it's worth every page. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.